Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. It's Tuesday, October 27th, 2015. I'm David Knight. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, territory disputes raise tensions between the U.S. and China. Then, Texas Governor Greg Abbott tells the BLM to come and take it. And creepy tech is coming to a home near you. That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
But I mean, it's there. It's Wired Magazine, you name it. Wired Magazine headline, CIA director. Your dishwasher is spying on you. And I go on and I say, hey, everything is being engineered with spy grids in it. And the government admits they're watching you and listening without warrants. And they start laughing at me. And it's that type of behavior that spurred me to do the research to develop a true nutraceutical formula that was designed to smooth out and help children focus. All of our children are hit with modern mind control. Television, music, fast food, GMOs, sugars, you name it. Young humans have not yet developed their nervous system and are being hammered daily by globalist concoctions. It's no wonder they can't focus and calm down and then are put on dangerous psychotropic drugs. Working with my team, we set out to find the best formula with the highest quality ingredients that children would actually like and take. We worked with the leading manufacturer in nutritional supplements that are safe for children to bring you the most affordable and powerful calming formula out there. Introducing Child Ease with herbs and calming extracts like chamomile and lemon balm and essential nutrients that taste great. Obtain your Child Ease today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's Child Ease exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com.
As if we needed another hotspot, now we have a conflict developing in the South China Sea between the United States and the government of China. But there's something that has been going on for quite some time, and we'll talk about how we got to this point and what is involved. Here's the article from InfoWars.com. China is not frightened to fight a war with the U.S. after a warship incident. This is what a mouthpiece for the Chinese government said. The Global Times, a Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece, published an editorial asserting that Beijing is, quote, not frightened to fight a war with the United States as a result of the passage of a U.S. warship near disputed islands in the South China Sea. Now, this was a guided missile destroyer, the USS Lassen. It violated a 12 nautical mile zone that China claims around Subi and Mischief reefs in the Spratly archipelago yesterday. Now, understand these islands that they passed within 12 miles of are man-made islands made by the Chinese government, built on top of coral reefs, and we'll give you more information about that in just a moment. But they point out, experts have warned that an accidental collision between aircraft, similar to a 2001 incident, which led to an international controversy, could spark a deadly conflict. Yeah, you know, maybe something like the Gulf of Tonkin. That was close to the South China Sea. We're going to look at the geography in just a moment. That was the pretext for the Vietnam War. That was how Lyndon Johnson used it. Listen to this clip.
Now, America wins the wars that she undertakes. Make no mistake about it. And we have declared war on tyranny and aggression. If this little nation goes down the drain and can't maintain her independence, ask yourself what's going to happen to all the other little nations.
So what's going to happen to all those other little tiny nations? Well, we know now. We lost the war. Vietnam went Chinese. And as Robert McNamara, when he admitted that the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag, he also said that the Vietnamese told him when he met with him decades later, there never was any domino theory. They said, we have always fought the Chinese for our independence, and they are now, even though they're both communist nations. So now the United States evidently is taking the side of the Vietnamese government against China, even though the Vietnamese government is communist. Well, what's behind this? Who's acting provocatively here? Well, I would say that both nations are acting provocatively, and as Watson's article pointed out, Experts have said that we are at the closest point to war between China and the United States that we've been in 20 years. Let's take a look at what's going on here in the South China Sea. Now, the diplomat points out, since 2011, both China and Vietnam have both asserted conflicting claims to the South China Sea. Beijing claims 90% of the South China Sea as its exclusive economic zone. They reportedly have moved oil rigs into disputed areas. They've dredged. They've occupied parts of the disputed Paracel Islands. They've constructed at least one and potentially multiple airstrips for military use around the Spratly Islands. Now, even though this is called the South China Sea, we're going to take a look at the geography of this. It is not close to China. That's like saying that the Gulf of Mexico all belongs to Mexico. They also pointed out that Vietnam has also tried to use oil exploration to claim a disputed area of the sea, reportedly has rammed Chinese vessels in disputed waters. For much of the 1990s and 2000s, China's government, although never relinquishing long-standing claims to the South China Sea, took a less assertive approach. Yet in the past 5 years, China has reasserted claims to roughly 90% of the sea, as we pointed out. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates that the sea contains as much as 290 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. So there's a lot of energy to be exploited out of that area. They also point out the South China Sea accounts for about 1/10 of the entire annual global fish count. So there are massive resources in this area. Let's take a look at the map. When you look at this map, you can see the Gulf of Tonkin is up close to Vietnam. You can see that little niche up there. The Spratly Islands, however, as you look at those, they are very close to the Philippines, very close to the Philippines. These islands that have been built are artificial islands. As The Guardian has pointed out, China's artificial islands led to tension in the South China Sea. And they say that this is, and they point out correctly, it's not even just the last 5 years. It's really within the last 18 months or so, most of it within the last 9 months of this year. They say China has dramatically stepped up land reclamation work on reefs and the atolls it claims in the Spratly Island chain in the South China Sea. They also are claimed by the Philippines, which are very close to them geographically, by Taiwan, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Brunei. Chinese ships have been dredging new harbors while cranes have been erected in an attempt to build artificial islands atop submerged reefs. There's evidence of airstrips. As we just pointed out, the U.S. has protested the work is illegal and destabilizing, and for months, the Pentagon has been pushing the White House to take a firmer stance. Now, they say that these claims on the Spratlys and the Paracel Islands to the north are based more on historic settlement than on geographical proximity, and you can see that these islands are very close to the Philippines. So if we look at what they're doing there, even the environmentalists, conservationists are very concerned about what China is doing. Take a look at these pictures from The Guardian. They took satellite pictures and they showed these coral reefs over about a 2-year period, how they have changed. And you can see as you slide that slider, you can see what China has built there. They point out that as China races to extend its military reach, and I would say also massive economic reach, going after this natural gas oil reserves, it is turning pristine habitats into permanent islands. Satellite images of the South China Sea show rapid destruction of some of the most biodiverse coral reefs in the world. The reclamation of land in the contested Spratly archipelago to build runways, military outposts, even small towns is endangering ecosystems that are key to maintaining world fish stocks and biodiversity. So this is what's happening there. The Chinese are moving rapidly to consolidate this area, to assert that they are in control of this, but of course the United States is not going to allow that to happen. There are multiple nations involved. Some of the principal conflict here, of course, has been between Vietnam and China, ironically, but you can see that they're very close to the Philippines and there are other countries that are involved. So what the United States has done, even though they were warned by the Chinese, this is our land and we have claimed it, don't come through here, the American government sent this vessel very close to one of these islands, did not tell the Chinese that they were coming, did not give them any advance warning, did not turn back when confronted, as you've seen with the tapes that we played on the Alex Jones radio show earlier today. And they would not apologize for it. They said these are international waters. I believe that they are. And they said that they are going to go through that area whenever and wherever they wish. There's an important lesson in that. And that is that if you allow somebody to infringe upon property that is not theirs and allow that to stay there, That infringement then makes that property theirs. That's an important thing to think about when we look at our own government's infringement on our own rights. First of all, the Second Amendment. It's not property rights, but our rights as human beings, our rights as citizens are our property as well, in a sense. And we understood, of course, the founders understood, that this would come about by a process of gradual infringement, moving into an area, asserting control over that area, then refusing to move back. And once you allow that to stand, if you do not challenge that, then that property becomes theirs. That is the essential principle that we have always seen. And now we can see that with the BLM in multiple cases where they're asserting their ownership over property rights that were surface rights for grazing, or mineral rights beneath the surface that they had been held by people, by miners for 150, sometimes more years, having title to those particular rights, or water rights, or the land itself. And of course, this is what's happening in Texas. We have talked about the story that came out about, I guess it broke again a couple of weeks ago. It actually surfaced as the Bundy Ranch situation was happening. The BLM at the same time was asserting that it was going to take 90,000 acres of privately held land in Texas away from its lawful owners. At the same time, they were taking away the grazing rights from the last remaining ranchers in Nevada. This is something that is now coming to the surface with one particular rancher. They're coming after his ranch. They say that they're going, by moving the boundary with the Red River, they're going to take half of his ranch as well as his home. We reported this. We had an article just about 10 days ago. Texas rancher fights back against BLM land grab. He says it's a land grab as far as I'm concerned. This is private property. That was on October the 13th, 2015. We've seen just this last weekend the BLM illegally killing massive numbers of horses. They turned over 2,000 horses to a private individual who slaughtered them. They didn't vet him to see why he was getting so many horses. Even after they were warned that horses were being illegally slaughtered, they continued with this kind of crony capitalism, and this is exactly what is involved. It cost $140,000 for the taxpayers to deliver the horses. He paid only $18,000 for them and then turned around and slaughtered them for a $154,000 profit. We know this is what's behind most of the land grabs that the BLM is engaged in. They say here in Texas that it is going to be used for recreational purpose. That's not what has largely happened. They will use a little bit for recreational purposes, but then they will turn it around and give it to some large foreign companies in many cases, as we've seen done in Arizona against Apache lands, taking the massive copper mines there, breaking the treaties with the Indians. Governor Abbott has responded to this, and we've talked about his sending a letter to the BLM, but I want to read you exactly what he said to them, because I want you to see how strongly he came back and pushed against this. He says, and they quote some headlines, "Government tells rancher his land no longer belongs to him. Land grab. These are not headlines in distant autocratic dictatorships." Again, this is a letter to the director of the BLM from our governor here in Texas. The governor says, "These are headlines in Texas after a recent meeting where representatives from the BLM made it clear that the federal government persists in its efforts to take control of the land along the Texas-Oklahoma border, land that has been privately owned and managed for decades. I write for a third time to ask that you cease and desist this federal land grab. As Attorney General, I asked for clarification regarding the BLM's claim of ownership of vast lands held by Texans along the Red River. The BLM has yet to identify what land the federal government newly claims as its own. Texas will not wait for answers any longer. The landowners along the Red River have lived and labored on this land for generations. The BLM now inexplicably seeks to take control of thousands of acres of private land for undetermined recreational activities." Yeah, right. Explaining to landowners that the process is long and complex, that the surveys will be done, or that landowners will eventually be able to file a, quote, color of title lawsuit is neither a solution nor solace. Instead, it is an illegal taking. That is an illegal taking in and of itself. He is exactly right. He says it harms the Texans right now because they cannot get loans against that land. They can't sell it because there's a cloud on the title by the potential actions of the BLM. So they're going to take a very long time to do this, but they are not going to resolve this. And of course, again, this first came up at least 2 years ago. There was this massive move to take 90,000 acres. He goes on to say, and this is a great summary, the governor says, our Constitution, the same Constitution you have taken an oath to uphold, rests on the principle that governments are created to protect private property owners' rights, not destroy them. This principle is enshrined in the Fifth Amendment of our founding document. The BLM should demonstrate that the federal government still respects private property rights and end this unconscionable land grab. Exactly right. And I'm glad to see Governor Abbott doing this. This is exactly the way the governors of the states or the state legislatures need to be nullifying illegal, unconstitutional actions by the federal government. This is a criminal action, and we need to have state nullification of criminal actions. Whenever the federal government gets out of its bounds of authority, we need to have governors like Governor Abbott has in this particular case stand up to them and say, you have exceeded your authority. Clearly, they have. The 9th and the 10th Amendment make it very clear that we have the authority to stand up and defend our rights at the state level. Only things that have been explicitly granted to the government, the central government, are things that they can do. They cannot infer new powers, and they cannot take our private property. That is very clear. So that is the way forward. That's what we need to see, and we need to understand that just as we see China asserting their ownership of these lands, going out and building airstrips on top of coral reefs, destroying the coral reefs themselves, just as they're doing that, someone needs to stand up to that and say, no, we're not going to allow that to stand. We need to, in the same way, stand up to our aggressive, expanding federal government when it tries to infringe upon our rights and our property rights and take things illegally. Now, when we come back, we're going to have actually an admission of a mistake that I made about what appears to be a false narrative about Russian attacks on hospitals. The Russian government has pushed back on the claims that hospitals have been attacked. We're going to look at the claims and counterclaims of that. I think, quite frankly, it is a propaganda move by the American government against the Russian government in Syria. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And all you ISIS people threatening us, hey, we're not a French newspaper, okay? We got people that have taken your asses out in this building right now. We're armed to the teeth, and we're not scared. You got that, you sons of bitches? This is Texas. You want to threaten me, you can go straight to hell. You understand that?
Never water yourself down just because someone can't handle you at 100 proof, because there's a war on for your mind.
Your liver can be full of fatty deposits, built-up toxins, and even dangerous objects known as liver stones. We worked with the top developers in the field of detox to take tried and true herbs and other compounds known to safely cleanse the liver and fuse it with the latest research and technological development on concentrating these ingredients to give you the maximum effect. Liver Shield is the only liver support product on the market that uses a patented Spigirex blend of powerful organic herbs that support detoxification. And when you visit InfoWarsLife.com, see the instructional video on how to do a 6-day liver detox. This isn't a game, and let me tell you, the results are dramatic. Liver Shield is totally organic and made of the safest high-quality herbs. But that said, you need to consult your physician before you do the full detox. Liver Shield can also be used daily by itself for overall upkeep of the liver. Secure your Liver Shield today exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com for the lowest price available. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139. Brain Force is here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're gonna crash and gonna feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. For example, the L-theanine inside of it, that is activated by the different compounds in the yerba mate that we put inside of it as well. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a car will run on one form of junkie gas, but it runs really good on what it's designed for. You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
I want more candy. I want more video games. Lie.
And it's that type of behavior that spurred me to do the research to develop a true nutraceutical formula that was designed to smooth out and help children focus. All of our children are hit with modern mind control. Television, music, fast food, GMOs, sugars, you name it. Young humans have not yet developed their nervous system and are being hammered daily by globalist concoctions. It's no wonder they can't focus and calm down and then are put on dangerous psychotropic drugs. Working with my team, we set out to find the best formula with the highest quality ingredients that children would actually like and take. We worked with the leading manufacturer in nutritional supplements that are safe for children to bring you the most affordable and powerful calming formula out there. Introducing Child Ease with herbs and calming extracts like chamomile and lemon balm and essential nutrients that taste great. Obtain your Child Ease today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's Child Ease exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com. Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. InfoWarsLife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams a piece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult. It's got the GABA, so it would probably cost $50 to take all this as separate pills. It's $19.95. You take one or two of these, and it just is really clean, restful sleep is what the reviews are. It's what I've experienced. And it just synergistically puts everything in there. InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com. Or call 888-253-3139.
We try to be as accurate as we can here at InfoWars. Sometimes we make a mistake, and when we do, we want to try to correct that. I reported this last week, and I think we've reported on our website, about the accusations that Russia has shot up, I think, between 7 and 9 hospitals. I call that into question now. Let me give you an example of how this is broken down. Let's take a look at exactly what we've learned and the sources of that information, which we should have done earlier. For example, the Daily Beast has a headline, Russia bombs hospitals and the lefties shrug. Now, their narrative is that the global left has vocally condemned the U.S. bombing of a hospital in Kunduz, but Russian bombing of hospitals in Syria, not a chance. And then they talk about this bombing of the hospital in Afghanistan. They say on October 3rd, a U.S. gunship fired on a hospital run by Doctors Without Borders. Well, it was a lot more than just fired on a hospital. This was an attack on a hospital that the U.S. as well as Afghanistan government had known about. They had been notified multiple times about the exact coordinate locations. This is an attack that went on for 30 minutes, a prolonged attack. And they were notifying, as this attack was going on, the American government as well as the Afghan government. Still, it did not get called off. This is why everyone is so concerned about it. Not only that, but the American government changed their story 4 times in 4 days, finally admitting that they did it, but no apology. Then they visited the site to investigate and destroyed evidence. That's why people are so concerned about this. And when we look at what's going on in Syria, maybe it's not a case of them actually hitting these hospitals. It may be a case of the American propaganda machine pushing back in Syria to excuse what they did in Afghanistan. Again, going back to this Daily Beast article, they say there's a gruesomely perfect example of this hypocrisy that has been visible this month on the left relating to the U.S. war crime in Kunduz. They say that the Russian forces have carried out no less than 4 confirmed attacks on medical facilities and deliberately targeted ambulances. The reaction of the left to Kunduz is one of near apoplectic outrage, but among none of the major organizations or individuals on the left will you find even a codicial acknowledgement of the continued attacks by Russia on medical facilities in Syria. Now, the Daily Beast self-identifies itself as a lefty, but I think what they have become is an apologist for the American military-industrial complex. Remember this article from last week, The Daily Beast. She kills people from 7,800 miles away. Her name is Sparkle. She operates a drone, and she is sick of whiny boys. And she's perfectly okay with dealing out death. And you know what? So is The Daily Beast. And it was interesting that that article came up just a couple of days after The Intercept had run their very long article showing what was going on with the drone war, releasing documents that had been classified and showing the details of how this worked. That was a pushback at the time against the revelations of the drug war. And you know, it is not okay, in spite of what the Daily Beast does with this article, they talk about this woman, how she gets up in the morning, she's got a dog that is a Shar-Pei, they talk about her daily routine. It's kind of an NPR type of article, and they have this insight here. You want to date a guy and they just do jobs that seem menial, she said. They gripe, they bitch, they complain about the most trivial things. Most of them are still wrapped up in their idea of masculinity. Yeah, you see, feminist macho makes assassination and murder of innocent people from 7,800 miles away. That makes that all okay, according to the Daily Beast. So they write this puff piece glorifying this female murderer that works for the American government. And I find it interesting that they push back so hard against this situation in Kunduz at the same time. Now, today, the Russian government has come out and said, no, this didn't happen in Moscow. Moscow has demanded a U.S.-led coalition in Syria to prove or deny allegations that Russia is bombing civilians. Russian Ministry of Defense summoned military attachés from NATO countries and Saudi Arabia and the United States on Tuesday, asking the officials to clarify their country's allegations that Russian airstrikes in Syria have hit civilian targets. They say, today we invited military attachés from the U.S., Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the NATO bloc to ask them to give official validation to their statements or to make a rebuttal. Very interesting, because when I continued to look at this, I saw in the Telegraph talking about, and here's the headlines from the Telegraph article, Syria's doctors are utterly abandoned after Russian airstrikes hit hospitals. Third paragraph down, they say, when the regime strikes, we hear planes and we know what is coming, said Dr. Mohammed Tanari, the hospital's director. This time, however, there was nothing, just silence, then an explosion. That's interesting. Why didn't they hear any airplanes? Well, the explanation that they come up with was it must be Russia sending in guided missiles. Or maybe it wasn't that at all. And so Russia is calling their bluff. But Tony Cartalucci at Global Research, I think, really nailed it down. And he pointed out that in any war, there's always going to be collateral damage. That's why you want to make sure that you have a justification for going to war in the first place. And of course, why everybody is concerned about what happened in Kunduz is that it wasn't simply collateral damage. It wasn't an errant bomb or an errant missile. This was an attack that continued for 30 minutes. It made it a deliberate war crime. But he goes on to point out that when we are seeing notifications of what's going on and the reports of what's going on in Syria, he says, for example, the so-called Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is actually a single individual named Rami Abdel Rahman. He says he's admittedly sympathetic to those seeking the division and destruction of Syria. Rami Abdel Rahman is also based in the UK. So he's not actually observing anything in Syria. He himself has been observed coordinating his activities with the Foreign Commonwealth Office in London. And the lie from someone who was not even on the scene expanded rapidly from that. But our reporter, Leanne McAdoo, is on the scene of a red alert leak of hazardous material at a radioactive landfill.
Leanne McAdoo reporting for Infowars.com. I'm here with some breaking news. Once again, standing in front of the radioactive Westlake Landfill. Just got a phone call from Dawn Chapman. She's the founder of Just Moms STL, as well as St. Louis RadWasteLegacy.com. She called to let us know that right now the landfill is experiencing a leachate leak. It's huge. Dawn, what's going on?
There's 10 to 11,000 gallons of leachate leaking right now back in the field down there. Leachate is very toxic. It's from the landfill. It's created from the burning Superfund materials and garbage that are occurring right next to you. We understand that a force main broke and the leachate 10 to 11,000 gallons of it leaked. That's what you're smelling right now. You're smelling the actual odors and emissions from that leachate.
Right, and we're not going to be able to stay here too long because I'm literally feeling burning sensation in my chest. So this leachate, you call it dump juice, basically. But this is the radioactive material that's here in this landfill now leaked. 10,000 gallons leaking here at the bottom of this hill.
Right, we don't know if it's radioactive or not. I'm really hoping that they're going to test it down there. It looks like Department of Natural Resources is. But what we know for certain is that, again, the leachate has leaked about 10 to 11,000 gallons, and it's down there in a field. We can't get to it. That's private property. We're on a public street right now. We see Metropolitan Sewer District right now out here. They're trying to suck it up. They're trying to suck as much of it as they can get in these, and I'm really hoping that they do test it. But this is life every day here. You never know. You're in the middle of dinner when something like this is going to happen, and you can smell it. I have a horrible headache. I know your eyes look like they're watering right now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, imagine living next to this.
Right. And this is what you've been trying to get the city to understand, that this is happening and that they put out that worst case scenario of 3 to 6 months, and it could happen any day. It could happen today.
Right. You know, the worst case scenario is the fire meets the waste, but they forget that this kind of stuff happens all the time at this landfill. You know, a massive leak in a field next to a creek down there. This is an out of control site. What's happening down there is not controlled. The company, the EPA, they say this is a controlled site. I beg to differ. Look at what's happening right there.
All right, Leanne McAdoo reporting for Infowars.com. We're going to wrap up here and follow up. We're going to just get as much information as we can right now. But again, this is breaking right now. The leachate is leaking out of the Westlake landfill. Here, Leanne McAdoo reporting for Infowars.com. Stay tuned to Infowars.com for more reports.
Get out of here. Get out of here so you're not sick. Get out of here so you're not sick. We've already been exposed.
This is a protest, and this is a riot. If you can't tell the difference, then you are part of the problem. Infowars.com.
I have a dream.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Now is the time to secure Ancient Defense for you and your family. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. That's ancientdefense.com. Break down why you're so proud of these filters.
Well, I mean, the Alexa Pure is really a culmination of all of my experience. It was posed to me as an extremely challenging project. They wanted a product that would actually operate without any electricity, so you had no pressure. You had to do it all by gravity, and they really effectively said, we need everything imaginable to be removed efficiently, way higher than 99%. And so the result was it's an extreme challenge. Worked on it for quite a long time. And basically what we've done is we created the only filter, to my knowledge, that hits all three. It will remove effectively all the major metals, all the major non-metals such as fluoride. It will take out all known microbiological threats, including viral, bacterial, and cyst. And it will take out organic chemicals of pretty much everything without exception. It's a very, very powerful device. I don't believe that there's anything else out there in the world that can do that, especially under gravity flow conditions. The fit and finish are fantastic. No compromise was made on the quality of the construction. So, I mean, it's really a remarkable achievement on their part, and I feel very proud, actually, to be part of the team that put that together.
What's your view overall on fluoride?
Well, okay, so we actually tested against both the fluoride ion and the fluorosilicate that you mentioned, which is the additive that people put into water under federal control. And basically, we removed both of them with equal efficiency. So we wanted to be sure that no matter how fluoride is added to the water, it can be intercepted and removed. So that's how we've dealt with that. All I can tell you is that we tested against all known fluoride chemicals that are added to water, the new ones and the old ones, and we removed them all of equal efficiency. And it's your belief that this is the best gravity-fed filter of the design out there available to the public? Without a doubt. I mean, most of these gravity flow filters are at best simple particulate filters. They remove dirt and debris, sediment. They're not going to be capable of intercepting a viral particle to the degree we're talking quantitative reduction below detection. No one can touch that kind of capability. Well, I'm impressed, and I want to thank you so much for your time today. It is the Alexa Pure Pro family of water filtration systems available, discounted exclusively at InfoWarsStore.com. I want to thank Mr. Redhawk for allowing us to be part of the launch of this. It's on sale right now for their main unit, $177. Leading competitors that aren't even as good are more than that. And they've also got the survival spring type straw system for survival that is an absolute must-have.
Joining me in the studio is Zoltan Isvan. He is founder of the Transhumanist Party. You are now, Zoltan, taking a bus tour. Is that right? You're going across country with your I think it's the Immortality bus. Is that what it's called?
Indeed, it is a bus that looks essentially just like a coffin, and we're trying to provoke a conversation about life extension.
Okay, all right. And we've got a video, and I want to run this video and ask you about what you're doing with this and why you would do this. We got a video of you getting a chip put in. Are you guys ready to roll that video? Can we do that? Okay, let's roll that video.
But you have the chip already built into the thing? Or
Yep, it's already in the injector.
Okay.
So it's sterilized and ready to go.
Yeah.
There we go. See that little pop feeling?
That was nothing.
Now you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've done much worse over the last few days.
How long ago was this?
About 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Jammed it in the ladder.
Here, we'll give it some blood.
It's a pretty big needle. It's hard to show. Look, there's some blood. But it's a 60-second procedure. In fact, maybe it's a 10-second procedure done quickly.
Who wants to see the blood involved here?
It's definitely, it hurts more than a normal needle. That's for sure. But it's a pop.
Are you feeling any more?
And they're putting that in your hand. For people who are listening on the radio, they're putting a chip in your hand.
Indeed, yes.
And what is this chip going to do?
Well, it's very rudimentary, honestly. It doesn't really do much, but for example, with the bus, if you have the right software and the right technology, you can start your bus by waving your hand over the ignition instead of having a key. Or, for example, to get into the Alex Jones studio, you could just swipe your hand at the security and that would let you right in. In the future, though, it's going to be able to do things like you can pay with it. You can, it'll monitor your temperature, your hydration levels, and maybe even tell you whether you're getting enough iron from broccoli or something like that. So it's going to do a lot of different things like that.
And then, of course, the government can also track your position all the time with it.
So that is absolutely a concern. It's a concern of mine. But at the same time, you know, I'm sort of like the iPhone or the smartphones. You know, I guess there's a trade-off between your surveillance and security issues versus the government kind of prying into your life.
Yeah, exactly. That's always a trade-off. And, you know, I was one of the first people to get an iPhone. I got the very first iPhone on the very first day. I love technology. And I got to say, when I'm finished with this contract, I'm going back to some kind of a burner phone because I'm just fed up with the surveillance state. And so I'm willing, now I've looked at this and it's like, I will put up with a lot of inconvenience for my privacy because I think that's something that I don't want to give up. But let me ask you about health concerns. Aren't you concerned about the health issues of having that there? Because there's been some reports of animals who've gotten these kinds of chips, developed tumors at the site of that. This is something you put in fairly recently. There hasn't been a lot of of history with these kind of chip implants. Are you concerned about possible health effects?
So yes, I am. But so far, at least in the biohacker community, I haven't heard of anything negative specifically with anyone that has received this chip. Now, it's really the size of a grain of rice. It's tiny. That said, I do want to say, you know, my wife is a surgeon, and she said, you know, you do need to be cautious that what if this got free and went into the bloodstream and clogged an artery or something. So there are dangers like that. However, I have not heard of one like that. And I think a lot of people bring up a lot of the dangers, but so far there's very little evidence that would prove contrary to this. Again, not that many people have had it, and I'm very happy that I did it. I would probably do another one. I'm a big advocate for cranial implants. You know, as you may know, there's about 500,000 people in the world right now that have cranial implants, brain implants. Most of them are cochlear implants that help with deafness so that people can hear, but some are already working towards epilepsy or working to help with Alzheimer's. So I think the era of implants is coming, and it's not, you know, even though I got this tiny thing in my hand, we're talking on the next 10 years, many people are going to be doing, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the real question is, how can we get the public to feel secure with them? And especially, how can we make sure the government doesn't abuse it?
Yeah, yeah. And of course, part of that is informed consent. I mean, personally, if I'm looking at this, I want to know that there's enough of a history with something, anything that I put in my body, whether it's an implant or whether it's a vaccine or you know, anything that is new. I want to know what the history of this is. I want to see the studies. I want to see studies that have been done by people besides the people who created the device or who created the vaccine to know if it is something that's safe. And the important part of that is not only the informed part of that, but it's also the consent part of that. As somebody who is running in a political party, would you support mandatory implants of people?
No, of course not. But what I would support is development from the government, you know, putting real money into it. For example, through Obama's Brain Initiative, $70 million is now going to DARPA, and they are trying to develop a chip to help with depression from soldiers coming back from wars and conflict zones. And I think that's an excellent use of, you know, cranial implants, is to try to cure something like depression. I mean,
do you really believe that that's the mission of DARPA?
No, I'm just saying that's
seriously,
one of the things.
Seriously, I mean, DARPA has used these kinds of things, benign uses, and come up with it and said, you know, we just want these killer robots because we might have to go into a nuclear power plant like Fukushima someday. If you go back and you look at the history of DARPA, there's an excellent book. Alex has interviewed the author, Andy Jacobson, The Pentagon's Brain, going back to the 1950s, the 1960s. I mean, DARPA is there to create weapon systems. They're not there to help people. And, you know, when I look at these brain system, these brain initiatives that DARPA is part of, I have to remember that after World War II, after the Korean War, they were doing frontal lobotomies on people. Massive the Pentagon was doing. You got PTSD, we'll give you a frontal lobotomy. This allows them to do this electronically, not having to use, you know, in a much cleaner way. Okay, so I mean, again, it comes down to the element of trust and the whole fact that DARPA would come out with these programs and put a beard on it and say, oh, this is for peaceful, benign use. I just don't buy it.
Well, and I understand your worries, and of course you're older than me, so you've seen more of the history of DARPA, but at the same time, I think we are really just talking about depression for soldiers, so it's hard to see how that could go wrong. Now, I do understand about the war machines. You're right. There is a long history of developing, you know, war toys. And frankly, my political party and myself are pretty against war. In fact, one of our main initiatives is to try to divert money from defense and bomb making and wars to health, to science and technology. So I'm definitely an I wouldn't say anti-military, but a huge part of my platform is pulling money away from the military and putting it directly into scientists' hands.
Yeah, I would like to pull the money away from the military and pull it out of the government's hands. Quite frankly, I would like for us to be able to make our own decisions, to make our voluntary associations, to fund our own research if we wish, to be able to afford to buy whatever we wished for our own health. But of course, you know, as long as we send all of our money to Washington and then have them make those decisions for us, that won't happen. Let's talk a little bit about your transhumanist party. Let's talk about the platform here. Here's the first one. Implement a transhumanist Bill of Rights mandating government support of longer lifespans via science and technology. And I want to know what the Bill of Rights is, but you kind of lost me there when you used the word mandating, okay? Because I'm not really big on mandates, especially when it's something that's coming from the federal government.
No, of course, and mandate is kind of a strong word. But basically, we want to have it so that, and this is one of the reasons why I'm driving this bus across the country, we're going to be delivering this Transhumanist Bill of Rights to the U.S. Capitol building in about 5 weeks. And we want to make it so that politicians cannot step into the way of people's health. We feel that politicians throughout history, for example, with George W. Bush stopping stem cell funding, he has hurt people's health. And we would like to make it so that no politician, because of either religious or cultural positions, can stand in the way of people's overall health. Now, I know it's...
The stem cell research. Let's understand that when they stopped infant stem cell research, okay, there's still adult stem cell research. And it's actually adult stem cell research that they've had all the advances from. They haven't had any advances from fetal stem cell research. So you can do things in a way that doesn't violate people's rights. For example, we have prohibitions against doing things to people without their informed consent because of things that were done during the Nuremberg trials. They were making the case, they made the case with Nazi scientists, with German scientists, that in the greater good of humanity, they could do things to people without their informed consent, horrific thif to people without their informed consent. So there are some ethical checks that we want to put on medical progress that people do. We don't just say, well, if we're going to benefit potentially from this medically, we're going to remove those checks. So it is valid, I think, to have some ethical checks. So I feel that if we don't make decisions about what we put into our own bodies, then we are nothing but slaves to people. I don't think that the federal government ought to be able to make any of those determinations. But I think it's also very important that we, I'm concerned about the idea that we would mandate support from the government, because I've seen how that turns around very quickly. We're out of time for this segment.
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. Take advantage of this at InfoWarsLife.com.
And why wearing a Hillary for President t-shirt might get you punched in the face.
They thought it said Hillary for President. He said, I was seconds away from sending my bar back over here to punch you in the face. Since you're wearing a Hillary for Prison shirt, you don't have to buy drinks here. Everything's on the house.
Hillary for President! Hillary's not surging, I tell you that. They're not saying that. They're not saying, thank you.
There you have it. Donald Trump endorses Hillary for Prison. Get your Hillary for Prison 2016 t-shirt at the InfoWars store. And on the back, it says, legalize freedom. Show your disapproval of Hillary by buying your t-shirt today.
But what she's done is criminal.
This is an American president. Just add puppet, then vote and repeat every 4 years.
Professor, continuing here today, talk about your book. Talk about, the wide-ranging situation that we're dealing with.
So the book really is about what the future of artificial intelligence is going to bring. Most people agree that in the next 20 to maybe 100 years, we're going to see something developed on the level of human intelligence. How is that going to change society? How is that going to impact all of us? My book aims to make sure that the humanity is going to benefit from this technology, not get hurt in some really significant way. So that's essentially the main theme of a book. It discusses ways we can make those technologies safer, hack-proof them, make them serve common people.
Break down for the common person out there exactly the type of scenarios that could unfold and have already unfolded with these systems?
So if you realize the number of different jobs we have outsourced to artificial intelligence systems, they can already control nuclear power plants, airlines, stock trading. Essentially, anything of significance is not done by people anymore. And this trend only gets more and more severe. At some point, we'll have computers controlling everything. And if there is a bug in a system, or if an enemy hacks into the system, this could have devastating effects on the whole society.
And of course, that really, from my research, has been the DARPA plan the whole time. Get the whole world to adopt this system, build back doors into it. The West then builds the giant cybersecurity commands to offensively take over the world, Professor, and then build the back doors in to where they can use it to suppress and track the general public and even predict the future of mass movements. That's basically, from my research, what the Pentagon admits they're doing.
I am not familiar with any insider plans. I can notice things like NSA distributing cryptographic algorithms, which seems like a counterintuitive thing since they're trying to break those. So if there was a backdoor in their hashing algorithm, for example, I wouldn't be surprised.
Professor Yampolsky is our guest, and you can find out more about him by checking out his book, and we'll put a screenshot up on the screen for people that are watching us on television so they can get the name of that book. It's Artificial Superintelligence, a Futuristic Approach, and you can actually see one of the professor's interviews with us right there, Skynet Rising, the AI Threat to Humanity Exists. My issue is, are you more concerned about breakdowns in the system or governments using these to dominate, or an actual AI type artificially aware system coming online, and then that decides to take us out like Terminator?
All of the above. My job is to make sure everybody's safe, so I can't ignore any opportunities, any options. It's easier to study and easier to justify scenarios where someone is hacking into the system externally. Something like a self-aware AI system going crazy is really futuristic. We're not quite at that level yet, but something like a government putting a backdoor to control the system, that's quite realistic. That's standard computer security.
What do you think of what Ray Kurzweil has to say? Because for me, it's more like a comic book, the way he puts things out. And he admits he's starting really a new religion. And they're saying you'll either merge with the machines or you'll be stepped on like a bug. And they're selling this utopian view. But when I look at the real technological development and what the establishment says they're really building, it's more in line with something like Elysium, the new movie coming out with Matt Damon.
Kurzweil is probably the world's #1 expert in that field. I mean, he's amazing at predicting what future of technology is going to be. He precisely predicted the year a computer will defeat a human chess champion. He predicted a lot of other technologies. He is, in my opinion, somewhat overly optimistic about how beneficial technology will be without spending as much time on possible negative side effects, which I think are just as important. With his recent appointment as head of engineering at Google, he definitely has financial resources and other capacity to make a lot of his dreams come true. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a very successful AI program at Google as a result of Ray Kurzweil's work.
But my issue is the technocrats. I've studied who's running this, and they openly say we may just get rid of everybody once this new level of evolution takes place. We're talking about genocide here and people playing God, and I don't think the public is even aware that Ray Kurzweil is able to predict a lot of what's coming in the future because he's an insider and kind of their front man. He's obviously a very smart, a big inventor. He is basically the public face of what they're planning to do, is my point. I mean, I'm not even an engineer. I go off of what they say they're going to do. And so that's why he knows so much about the goals. I mean, he wants a technocratic world government run by an AI supercomputer where we're reportedly going to be given eternal life by giving up our humanity and merging with machines. Sounds like a nightmare to me.
I want you to kind of lay out for us the two different approaches to AI and kind of get an idea of where we are in terms of current research on this. You disagree with Ray Kurzweil on the eventual outcome. He's someone who thinks that we're going to merge with machines in a kind of cyborg way. He also sees a utopian future. You're very concerned about this in terms of its conclusion, but I think you both kind of are taking the same approach to artificial intelligence, aren't you, in terms of modeling the human brain?
Well, my best friend is Ben Goertzel, and he and Ray Kurzweil, I consider them the two guys probably, well, one of those two will be the first, I think, to achieve genuine human-level artificial intelligence. And Ben's way, I call his approach just simply the engineering approach. In other words, do whatever you like. You know, just take some idea and engineer it and see if you can get artificial intelligence out of it. And that's pretty much the approach that artificial intelligence researchers have been taking for, 60-odd years. And they've not been successful. We still don't live in an era of artificially intelligent machines. And the other broad approach is simply copy the brain. Now, we know that approach eventually will pan out because we only have to look at ourselves as the living proof that it's possible to put molecules together in a certain way and produce an intelligent, conscious creature. Ourselves, human beings, we're the living proof that it can be done. Nature has found a way. But the bottleneck with that problem is we don't really know what intelligence is yet. So, we don't have enough knowledge of the detailed structure of the human brain.
And that's a good question, Dr. DeGaris, because how do you define intelligence? I mean, I remember decades ago people talking about IBM's chess-playing programs and talking about that as being artificial intelligence. That's not really autonomous thinking. That's highly programmed. It's running through a lot of different probabilities and possibilities and doing it in a way that is faster than humans, but it's essentially relying on the programming of humans. It's not autonomous, independent thinking. How would you define artificial intelligence? I think you're talking about something completely different with Artilex, aren't you?
Yeah, well, intelligence means just the ability to solve problems quickly, and the more difficult the problem, by definition, the higher the intelligence. So, my good friend Ben. In fact, will you be interviewing him at some stage?
Yeah, we'd like to. Yes, we'd like to.
Well, if you, I don't have to twist his arm a little. Ben would be very willing. So Ben's big thing is artificial general intelligence, which sort of answers your question, because today's AI is essentially very narrow. It's very specific and detailed, applied artificial intelligence to specific problems. Like Google's probably the best example of AI. But Ben's thing is AGI, with the emphasis on the G, meaning general. So a general artificial intelligence could solve just about anything, right? It would be a master of many different approaches to things. And if one approach doesn't work, well, it tries something else and so on until it solves the problem, which is pretty well what we do. We have zillions of modules in our brain that specialize in lots of little tasks, and they combine forces. And if one approach doesn't work, it tries something else until it solves the problem or it gives up.
Well, that's it for our show tonight, but be sure to go to prisonplanet.tv and get yourself a free trial. You can see the nightly news, the special reports, the rants, all right there on prisonplanet.tv. Also, go to our YouTube page, the Alex Jones channel on YouTube. You can see all the great reports there, as well, don't forget to check out the sidebar. You can see the side channels for Paul Joseph Watson, myself, Leanne McAdoo, David Knight, and the rest of the crew. I'm Jakari Jackson from the InfoWars Command Center, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. InfoWarsLife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams a piece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult. It's got the GABA, so it would probably cost $50 to take all this as separate pills. It's $19.95. You take one or two of these, and it just is really clean, restful sleep is what the reviews are. It's what I've experienced. And it just synergistically puts everything in there. InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com. Or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.